Look deep into the jungles of Central America, and you'll find something that simply shouldn't exist. Massive stone pyramids, precise astronomical observatories, and sprawling cities built by the ancient Maya. But here is the mind-bending part that baffles modern engineers even today. They built all of this without using a single metal tool. No iron, no bronze, no steel. They didn't have beasts of burden like horses or oxen to pull heavy loads. And the craziest part? They did not use the wheel for transportation. Not a single cart or wagon. So, if you are a Maya builder staring at a 10-ton limestone block in the middle of a dense rainforest, how do you get it up a 100-foot pyramid without modern cranes? To solve this mystery, we have to look at the ground they were standing on. The entire Yucatan Peninsula is basically a massive shelf of limestone. And here is the secret cheat code of limestone. When it's fresh under the earth, it's actually quite soft. Because it was so soft, Maya workers didn't need iron pickaxes. They used harder stones like chert and obsidian to carve it. They would carve deep trenches around a massive block right into the bedrock itself. Then, they hammered dry wooden wedges underneath the stone. They poured water on the wood, and as the wood expanded, it snapped the colossal stone free from the earth with pure physical force. So you have cut a 10-ton block of limestone. Great! Now, how do you move it through a dense jungle? Without horses or carts, the Maya relied on the most abundant power source they had: human muscle. They laid down a path of smooth wooden logs, creating a rudimentary rolling track. Using thick ropes made from vines, massive teams of workers would drag these stones mile after brutal mile. But dragging it on flat ground is one thing. Lifting it 100 feet into the air is another. To overcome gravity, they built colossal temporary ramps out of earth and rubble. Workers would literally bury the pyramid as they built it, dragging stones up this steep, artificial mountain. Once the stone was in place, they faced another problem. The irregular blocks didn't always fit perfectly together. They needed a superglue to hold the pyramids together against heavy rain, hurricanes, and time. Their solution? Maya concrete. They took leftover limestone and threw it into massive blazing fire pits. Heating the stone to extreme temperatures turned it into a fine white powder called quicklime. But they didn't just add water. To make it invincible, they mixed in a secret, bizarre ingredient. They used the sticky, highly durable sap from local bark, like the chukum tree. This plant juice acted as a chemical hardener, creating a mortar that was incredibly strong and water-resistant. They plastered their pyramids in this brilliant white stucco, creating smooth, impenetrable fortresses of stone. So they had the materials and the muscle. But what were they actually building? To understand that, you have to look up. The Maya were obsessed with the cosmos. Without any telescopes, they mapped the movements of the stars with terrifying precision. They tracked the exact length of a solar year. But just write these calendars down on paper. They built their calendars into the architecture itself. Welcome to Chichen Itza, home to the Temple of Kukulcan. This isn't just a tomb or a temple. This massive structure is literally a giant 3D stone clock. Look closely at the design. There are 4 steep staircases, one on each side of the pyramid. Each staircase has exactly 91 steps. Multiply that by 4, and you get 364. Add the single platform at the very top, and the total equals 365, the exact number of days in the solar year. But the real magic happens twice a year, during the spring and autumn equinoxes. It's the ultimate architectural party trick. As the late afternoon sun hits the northwest corner of the pyramid, it casts a series of triangular shadows against the stairs. These shadows perfectly align with a massive stone serpent head carved at the base of the balustrade. Suddenly, A giant, slithering snake of light and shadow appears to crawl down the side of the pyramid. Imagine being an ancient farmer seeing the feathered serpent god Kukulcan physically descending from the heavens. Mind-blowing, right? To pull off this illusion, the Maya had to align a 30,000-ton building to the sun with a margin of error of mere fractions of a degree. They mastered stone, and they mastered the stars. But in this unforgiving jungle, there was one thing even they couldn't control. Water. The Yucatan Peninsula is essentially a massive, flat limestone sponge. There is a shocking lack of surface rivers or lakes. When it rains, the water doesn't pool on the surface, it immediately filters down, deep underground. So how did a civilization of millions survive in a jungle where all the water is trapped in the dark below? They relied on nature's trapdoors, cenotes. Over thousands of years, the limestone bedrock collapsed, revealing massive natural sinkholes filled with pristine, fresh groundwater. These cenotes were the ultimate lifelines. Without them, the great Maya cities would have turned into ghost towns within days. But to the Maya, a cenote wasn't just a giant well. It was a terrifying, sacred portal. They believed these deep, dark waters were the literal gateways to Xibalba, the realm of the dead. And more importantly, it was the home of Chak, the powerful and temperamental god of rain. When devastating droughts hit the region, the Maya knew Chak was angry. To appease him and bring the rain back, they had to send gifts directly to his front door. Priests would hurl their most valuable treasures into the abyss: precious jade, carved obsidian, and rare gold. But when the drought didn't break, gold wasn't enough. They had to offer the ultimate sacrifice. Men, women, and even children were painted Maya blue and thrown alive into the sacred cenote of Chichen Itza. Centuries later, modern divers explored these depths, expecting to find pure water. Instead, they found a chilling underwater graveyard. Water was just half the battle. At its peak, the Maya civilization had to feed up to 10 million hungry mouths. But a tropical rainforest is actually a terrible place to farm. The soil is surprisingly thin and poor in nutrients. Their first solution was brutal but effective: slash and burn agriculture. Known as the milpa system, they would cut down a section of the forest and set it completely on fire. The resulting ash created a temporary, highly nutritious fertilizer, perfect for planting their ultimate survival weapon: the three sisters: maize, beans, and squash. This was a stroke of ancient agricultural genius. The tall corn provided a pole for the beans to climb. The beans injected nitrogen back into the soil, and the broad leaves of the squash plant covered the ground, trapping moisture and stopping weeds. A perfect, self-sustaining ecosystem. But there was a catch. After just a few harvests, the jungle soil would completely dry up and die. To feed cities of 100,000 people, they had to look to the most disgusting places imaginable: massive, mosquito-infested swamps. They engineered colossal networks of raised fields. By digging up the nutrient-rich muck from the swamp floor, they created artificial islands. The canals provided constant irrigation, and the fish living in them provided natural fertilizer. This system was a powerhouse, yielding multiple harvests a year. It was an agricultural miracle. Because of this endless food supply, Maya cities exploded in size, becoming sprawling metropolises that rivaled anything in Europe. But building an empire in the jungle is a delicate balancing act, and the Maya were about to tip over the edge. The Maya built larger and larger cities, but to build those gleaming white pyramids, they made a fatal mistake. They needed lime plaster to coat their buildings, and to make lime plaster, you need fire. A lot of fire. It took an estimated 20 tons of freshly cut wood to produce just 1 ton of plaster. The math was unsustainable. They literally chopped down their own rainforest to build their monuments. And without trees, the local microclimate changed. The rains simply stopped. A devastating super drought gripped the Yucatan Peninsula for decades. The once abundant cenotes dried up. The raised agricultural fields turned to dry, useless dust. With millions of mouths to feed and no water, their miracle agricultural system completely collapsed. Panic set in. The kings and priests who claimed they could speak to the gods and control the rain lost all their power. When the gods didn't answer, the cities turned on each other. Desperate wars broke out over whatever food and water was left. The classic Maya period descended into chaos, violence, and starvation. In the end, they didn't mysteriously vanish into thin air or get abducted by aliens. They simply walked away. The survivors abandoned their great stone metropolises and scattered into smaller villages in the jungle. And slowly, the jungle did what it always does. It crept back in, swallowing the pyramids whole. For centuries, these impossible cities lay hidden under a thick green blanket, waiting to be rediscovered. The Maya people are still here today, millions of them. But the golden age of their mighty jungle empire was gone forever. The Maya might have abandoned their great cities, but they left behind records of a society that was highly advanced and incredibly weird, especially when it came to beauty standards. If you were a Maya noble, looking normal was simply not an option. Just days after a noble baby was born, their soft skull was tightly bound between two wooden boards. Over several months, the skull would permanently grow into an elongated, sloping shape. Why? Because it mimicked the shape of an ear of corn, paying ultimate homage to the maize god. But an elongated skull wasn't enough. To be truly beautiful, you also needed to be permanently cross-eyed. Parents would intentionally dangle a small resin bead right between a baby's eyes to force them to focus inward, honoring the cross-eyed sun god. And then there was the ultimate status symbol, extreme dental bling. Maya dentists, who were actually highly skilled, would use a rudimentary bow drill made of hard stone. With terrifying precision, they would bore a perfect cylindrical hole directly into a live, healthy tooth. They would then glue a precious jade or pyrite stone into the cavity using plant resin, without any metal tools. But their medical knowledge went far beyond cosmetic dentistry. If you got injured in battle, Maya doctors could suture wounds using a needle made of bone and thread made of human hair. And to deal with the pain of surgeries or dental work, they used powerful herbal anesthetics that would knock you completely out. So, a cross-eyed, cone-headed noble with jade-studded teeth wasn't a monster. To them, they were the absolute peak of Maya perfection. But Maya life wasn't just about surgery and beauty. It all culminated here, in the Pacatac ball court. The ball was solid rubber, weighing up to 8 pounds. You couldn't use your hands or feet, only your hips. One hit from this ball could break ribs. It was a game of extreme skill, endurance, and some very high stakes. The goal? To get the ball through the stone hoop mounted high on the wall. Almost impossible. But when someone finally scored, the ritual sacrifice that followed ensured the gods were pleased. This wasn't just a sport. It was a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. The Maya civilization didn't just fade away. It evolved, adapted, and survived. Thanks for exploring with me. There are still so many secrets hidden in the jungle. I'm Tico. See you next time. Ancient Americas Explained. Subscribe for more mysteries. Follow us on social media. Watch our next video about the Aztec Empire, produced by Ancient Americas Explained. See you in the next adventure.